We're right with you. The Morning Majority, 5 to 9 on 630 WMAL.
7:37 Morning Majority, Tuesday morning in D.C. Brian Neiman along with Matt Lewis from the Daily Caller this morning. Pleased to be joined now by Jake Tapper, senior White House correspondent for ABC News. Morning, Jake.
Good morning.
Hey, the president has gone back to the drawing table working on a new debt plan, and I guess he's going to unveil it tomorrow and just give a speech on it tomorrow. Is this a second take on the budget? I mean, is this a budget version 2.0 for the president, essentially?
Well, their strategy, they say, is that they wanted the Republicans to go first in terms of putting forward specific budget proposals in addressing the debt and the deficit and the national debt. And now you're going to have the president come up with his response. They say that's the strategy, and now hopefully a conversation will take place that will get the nation to where it needs to go.
But it is essentially his budget proposal then, right? I mean, it's just a new version of it.
No, it's not. The budget proposal would just be a short-term proposal for a year. This would be a much longer-term look at changes that need to happen, not necessarily for fiscal year 2012, but going forward, a longer-term plan for reducing the deficit and the debt.
Okay. Do we have any idea of what's going to be in this plan?
I would suspect you're going to see a lot of the proposals that you've heard from him before in terms of raising taxes on upper-income Americans, individuals who make more than $200,000, families that make more than $250,000. As he's pushed in the past, you'll hear him talk about savings from Medicare and Medicaid. You'll hear talk of using a scalpel and not a chainsaw in terms of cutting spending. And then there's also talk, and I'm not sure how much of this is accurate as of now, but there's talk of him embracing some of the proposals made forward by his debt commission, the Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson debt commission, looking at some of those proposals as well.
I mean, some are saying that even the fact that Obama's even talking about spending cuts at this point constitutes a sort of victory for Republicans. Is that reading too much into it?
Well, he's been saying, he's been saying for a long time that this would be the conversation that was had in 2011, and his aides have been saying that. Now, that said, I think it's fair to say that in terms of getting in front of the issue in a very aggressive way, Republicans did that first with the Paul Ryan budget proposal. So certainly in the public sphere, I can understand why it might look to people as though President Obama is following the Republicans, and he certainly is technically when it comes to aggressive deficit measures. But it's not as though this is something that they hadn't been talking about doing for quite some time.
All right. Obviously, the Ryan budget will pass in the House, but it's not going to go anywhere in the Senate. We know that. There is this gang of 6 in the Senate that is also working on its own debt plan. How significant is their plan as you compare it to the Ryan plan, and could they actually merge something together between the Ryan plan and this gang of 6 to make something actually work, that's something that would pass both the House and the Senate and get signed by the president?
Well, I don't think either plan will necessarily pass the House and Senate and be signed by the president. Certainly not the Ryan plan. I have not seen the Gang of 6 plan. But I think that one thing is true, is that with Democrats controlling the Senate, Republicans controlling the House, the only way something will pass both is if there's revenue or tax increases that Democrats would like to see, and spending cuts that Republicans would like to see. What has eluded Congress in the past, and remember the Bowles Simpson debt commission is not the first one to exist. What has eluded everybody in the past is the idea that, okay, I don't like some of this, you don't like some of this, but we'll all go into this, we'll all hold hands and do this together. And that's the question. If Democrats and Republicans can do this and acknowledge the fact that they're going to be voting for something they don't like, and if President Obama and Speaker Boehner will do this, as they have said to each other before, that they will, hold hands and do this together. If that happens, there can be some serious debt reduction measures. But and obviously you won't get a majority from either side, because there are some Republicans that will just never vote for a tax increase, and there's some Democrats that will not vote for the spending cuts that even President Obama would push. So if that does not happen, though, if the majority in the middle will not go along with this, then nothing will happen, and then we'll just kick this can down the road even further.
I wanted to ask you about the debt ceiling. Jay Carney's had to explain Senator Obama's vote against raising the debt ceiling. How big of a problem is that for Obama now as he tries to argue that this is a incredibly important and vital vote?
Well, it's enough of a problem that they have now changed their tune. I asked Gibbs in January about this. For those of your listeners that aren't familiar with this, in 2006, then Senator Obama voted against lifting the debt ceiling, saying that it showed a failure of leadership and we need to take our debt seriously, and just lifting the debt ceiling every year or two was not an answer. And he basically did this. The Senate voted to lift the debt ceiling. It was a narrow vote, 52 to 48. And now President Obama, of course, as president, wants the debt ceiling raised. It's $14.3 trillion right now. They probably need it raised about $1.9 trillion just to make it to the end of 2012. And there are a lot of senators and members of the House who would like to vote against that. And he is saying you can't do that. You can't play chicken with the economy. It would be a disaster. And he has had to explain why he did so in 2006. Gibbs, in January, told me basically he did it knowing that it would pass anyway. It was a protest vote. Since then, obviously, the White House has decided that that was not a sufficient explanation, because on Sunday, White House Senior Advisor David Plouffe said that it was a mistake. He took it further, and Jay Carney elaborated on that yesterday, saying, it was a mistake. He's learned from it. This is not the kind of protest vote to make.
All right, we've heard that Republicans, they're willing to raise the debt ceiling only if there are concessions. Do we have any idea what the concessions Republicans want in order to raise the debt ceiling?
Well, they haven't outlined them in public. Speaker Boehner on Saturday, speaking at a Connecticut Republican event, said that it would need to be something big, something substantive. I imagine what they're pushing for is massive spending cuts, but they haven't said what it would be specifically. So I can't say, but I would imagine they would want, if not spending cuts themselves, then at least some commitment to vote on some massive spending cuts in the future.
Okay. Jake, always good to have you on the show. We appreciate it as always.
Thanks, guys. Talk to you later.
Jake Tapper, Senior White House Correspondent for ABC.